Welcome everyone to Blue Abroad's Analytic Corner, The Rivals. I'm Dan the Pom, and today we're showcasing Geelong. Now 2019 was another case of always the bridesmaid and never the bride for Geelong, where they've reached their staggering 7th final since their last grand final win back in 2011. And it's an impressive record nonetheless, but last year really presented, you would have said, with the core crux of age, their best chance of winning a flag. And they swept all comers in the regular season where they secured the minor premiership. Now 2020 will probably present a last year of service for many of the Geelong stalwarts. So let's have a look at what came in this year to kind of help that ageing side. Now they managed to tame Jack Stephen from St Kilda. Now he's been a long time he's been linked with the club, and it turned out really to work out to be a swap for the departing ruckman in Zach Smith. Zach is a seasoned veteran, and I think a change of scenery will kind of lessen the load of the loss of Tim Kelly for Geelong. He's a very talented footballer, and on his day, for me, he's as good as anyone. We know he's had a few issues, and for me, he might not possess the game-breaking ability of Tim Kelly. However, he has heart, he has tenacity. When you look at his numbers, they're very Scott-like, that he'd enjoy, 5 clearances a game, 20-odd touches, goal a game. He is that kind of well-rounded player, and I think come finals time, he does strike me as the kind of player that would step up in a pressure ball scenario. Another guy who came in was Josh Jenkins. Now, we know that they tried for just about everyone in the trade period. There was Higgins, there was rumours of Goldstein. Josh Jacobs was the guy that came in. Now, he came in for next to nothing, and it was a very shrewd pickup. Wells did well there. Most of the top teams are playing with a tall that rotates through the forward line and pinch hits in the ruck, and Jacobs is reliable. And if he's fit, it'll be a perfect foil for me to allow Ratticalier to work on his ruck craft, get a bit more ruck time, lessen the load on Hawkins' aging shoulders. So I think it's a really good pickup, and for me, on his day when he's fit, he's just as good as anyone in the forward line. And for me, I thought targets in their forward line, they only had 2, and then that was the issue. So now they have that third option, really brings them up to date with everyone else in 2020. Now, the draft presented some real steals for me, and this is where I thought Geelong's backroom team worked impeccably. Cooper Stevens was their first pickup. Now, he's a tall, combative midfielder, and I would say, I hate to use the simile, but he's kind of Selwood-elect. He's classy with the ball in the hand. He's not afraid of the tough stuff, and he's a very Scott-type midfielder, if there is such a thing. Has a turn of pace, loves the contest, efficient in and out, will strongly feature, and I'd imagine that him, Cooper Stevens and Constable will be the 2 names that will become fan favourites for many years down at the category. I think he's a real good pickup for you. Now, another guy that came in who's familiar with ourselves was De Koning. Now, unlike his brother, he's not a ruckman, but tall, lanky swingman. And for me now, he's been utilised more as a backman in his last year of junior football. I expect to see him basically be version 2 of Harry Taylor. He'll take a bit of development, but he's like his brother, he has very raw skills. Now, one thing about De Koning is his great aerial craft. He's very athletic. He's really the prototype modern-day backman that we see up and down the AFL. And I think he'll really nicely develop in the VFL for you this year. And we know the Geelong VFL, they have a great history of developing players, and he's another shrewd pickup by Wells. Francis Evans was a surprise, and he caught many off guard, but he's very quick and he has exceptionally high footy IQ, and he could really be anything. I mean, when you kick 21 goals in 5 games, you're worth a punt, regardless of what level of footy you're playing at. And he's got all the raw skills that you'd look at. And when you think of the people that he's got to learn off, particularly Gary Ablett Jr., around there, for me, he's got a good person to shadow, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see him do a Gaz Jr. and maybe in a couple of years work his way back into the midfield, as he possesses a lot of them skills. Sharp, strong hand skills, very super clean, one of those kind of footballers that can go mud wrestling in a white shirt and still get into a nightclub. He's a phenomenal talent, so keep an eye out for him. And to round it up, Cam Tahini. Now, Cam Tahini slipped quite a long way. And I'd imagine all those at the category were rubbing their hands with glee when this name got called. Huge raps on this guy I had in the pre-draft show. has a left foot that was just built from the gods, hits targets, bigger frame, lightning pace. He's kind of like the prototype Dustin Martin, which seems to be littering the AFL draft system. Everyone seems to be liking, but he's a real goer. And I guarantee when we redo this draft in 10 years' time, this bloke's easily going to be inside the top 10. Perfect fit for Geelong, as they are literally one of the top teams in the comp at scoring from forward turnovers. And he loves a tackle, loves pressure, does a lot of the dirty groundwork. So phenomenal pickup for me. Well done, Wells. Now let's look at the 22 and how that affects it. Now the defence, when we look at this, is the toughest statistically in the competition. And it's a no-brainer that they'll be one of the favourites to win the flags. Defences win competitions. Now for me, they have one of my favourite players to watch, Tom Stewart. He's an aerial brick wall. You've got Matt Bilklabs there, strong, very mobile, very good user. Tui, you've got O'Connor. They just boom that pressure-saving kick down the boundary. And they do move the ball down the boundary more than any other side in the comp. Very efficient at putting pressure on as well and forcing turnovers in defensive 50. You combine that with a good midfield, but very efficient at transitioning from defence to midfield very quickly. And they're as good as any club in the comp on that. And let's make no mistake. For me as well, Buse, he's really improved. And Harry Taylor, he's just what you see, what you get. Ever reliable. Now the mid, I've got a feeling that Sam Menegola, I know from speaking to some Geelong fans, from looking at the interviews while researching this, there's a lot of him working on the ball, and I think he'll be a genuine on the ball and combative threat. He's been training in that role and he looks set to really aid the loss of Kelly. For me, he's a very, very superb footballer, and I can see him rotating through the centre of midfield and on the ball. Mitch Duncan and Jordan Clark either side of him. Jordan Clark was a revelation last year, phenomenal player. I expect to see him play more wing time. Quick, evasive, modern day wingman. Wingman becoming a real specialised position in the AFL nowadays. And Clark's got all them skills. And on the other side of him, you've got Mitch Duncan, he was brilliant last year as well. Found the ball a lot, used it. If he stays fit, gets a full season out of him, this midfield is up there with the best. Let's not mug Geelong off. Like, for me, you need to respect this side. Over to the forward line, and for me, like, the forward line looks potent on paper, has two big targets, has a gang of marauding crummers, one of the highest ranking sides, as we said, when the ball hits on the deck as well, with efficiency in the forward 50, top 3 in scores in forward 50 turnovers. And like, the reasons are quite obvious. Like, Parfitt, he really grew last year. Mears was a breakout player for me. He was just literally came from nowhere. And then when you've got the little master who seems to get better with every year, it's got all the tools. If anyone deserves to retire for a flag, on a side note, for me, Gary Ablett deserves to retire on a flag winner. I know he's won one before, but for me, that's it. And I reckon with the talk of him being managed, I reckon he'll be quite a potent force, because traditionally he plays well in final series. But I mean, it's a good forward line. Dowhouse as well, he offers something special. I think maybe it's a bit light if injuries happen, but for me, very solid core. As you can see, the followers, super strong. Selwood and Danger, they still dominate. They might be in their 30s, but they still do the biz. For me, the weakness is Rhys Stanley. He's probably not the top 10 in the comp, in my opinion. But when you've got guys feeding like that, who do back it up with second and third efforts, it's going to cause you problems. Some good depth on the bench, a lot of players missing out, but that's what I've gone with. I'd love to hear Geelong's thoughts on that. Now, my one to watch this year, that's been a favourite of this show. Big raps on Cam Tahini, a little jet. I think he will really step up. He's got a lot of wonderful players to learn from. And with the talk of Gary Ablett being rested, I reckon you'll see him a lot. And I think you'll really take to him. Trust me, phenomenal player, real talent, real exciting, little live wire type player. So how do you beat them? How do you beat Geelong? Well, I mean, their biggest criticism that doesn't seem to show up is they don't seem to show up when it matters in finals. I mean, that's one. And another criticism I've heard recently is the dad's army of the league. And I think that's a little bit unfair. I mean, yes, they are on the older bracket of the average age of AFL, but it doesn't really affect much until they retire, when it does. And when they're performing at the level they are, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, 2020 really, for me, does present the situation of it's now or it's never for the Cats in this age window, this age bracket. So how you beat them really traditionally is winning the first ball is how you unlock this side. If you can put a lot of pressure in the contest and win it, you kind of seem to set yourself up. We know that you like to attack the wings more than any other side in the comp. So if you put a bit of pressure on that, you force that rushed kick, and you also force them to play into the corridor, which is where you can start making the game congested. And when you start to make it congested and you start to make it scrappy, that is traditionally where Geelong seem to come unstuck. If you watch GWS beat them last year, that was how they did it. They kind of forced that kick, they rushed that wing kick so it was kicked to turnover, and then they started to force them to kick into congestion. And you see, that is the secret. But I mean, having said that, it is a very good side. This is one of the most statistically organised and regimented sides, and that again poses its own problem, that if you don't allow Geelong to play their game plan, their plan B has always been come up with a better plan A. So, put the pressure on in summary, force the kick in the middle, force the kick to 50-50, and pressure them hard down the flanks. And then you look to hit them on the counter, and it is susceptible to that. As always, everyone, thank you for watching. I wish Geelong the best of luck, as I always do in all these videos. Have a great year, except against us. Stay navy blue, folks. I'll be back soon. Thank you very much.